Good afternoon, everyone. I am Dr. Dhara Mehta. I'll be covering your practical on irreversible cell injury, that is necrosis, today. Now, just like we covered in reversible cell injury, this is the mechanism of cell injury, the basic mechanism wherein the homeostasis of a normal cell, when undergoes stress, results in cellular adaptation. However, when the cell is unable to adapt, as I discussed last time, it results in cell injury, which can be reversible when the stress is mild and transient, and when the stress is removed in this case, the cell will return to its normal state. However, if the cell injury and the stress is severe and progressive, it will result in irreversible changes, that is, cell death, which can either be necrosis or programmed cell death, that is, apoptosis. Now, coming to necrosis, what is necrosis? So, it refers to a spectrum of morphologic changes that follow cell death in living tissue. It results from progressive degradative action of enzymes on the lethally injured cell. Now, the common causes of necrosis, that is cell death, are hypoxia, ischemia, chemical and physical agents, microbial agents, that is bacterial toxins, and immunologic injury, that is autoimmune diseases. Now, coming to morphologic appearance of necrosis, the morphologic appearance of necrosis is the result of denaturation of intracellular proteins because of enzymatic digestion of the cell. Now, the enzymes which digest the cell are derived either from the lysosomes of the cell itself or from the lysosomes of immigrant leukocytes, that is, during inflammatory reactions. Now, in necrosis, the cell first undergoes cellular swelling, which may be followed ultimately by inflammatory cell infiltration and lysosomal enzyme mediated cellular rupture, lysis, or digestion. Now, coming to cytoplasmic changes in necrosis, the cytoplasm in case of necrotic cells appears swollen, pink, and more homogeneous compared to the normal living cells, that is, viable cells. Now, necrotic cells show increased eosinophilia due to loss of normal basophilia, which is imparted in the normal cell by RNA in the cytoplasm. Here, in case of necrosis, there is RNA breakdown, and because of which the basophilia decreases and eosinophilia increases. Also, there is increased eosinophilia due to increased binding of stain eosin, that is a dye, to the denatured intracytoplasmic proteins. Also, the necrotic cell has a more glassy and homogeneous appearance than that of normal cells, which is mainly the result of loss of glycogen particles in the cell, which impart the cell the granular appearance, which is reduced in case of necrosis and turns into more homogeneous appearance. Coming to nuclear changes, these are the three classic typical nuclear changes which are classic of necrosis, that is, first change is pycnosis, karyorrhexis, and karyolysis. So you have to remember these three terminologies specifically in any kind of cell death, that is pycnosis, karyorrhexis, and karyolysis. What is pycnosis? It is characterized by nuclear shrinkage and increased basophilia of the nucleus. Why the basophilia? Because the DNA apparently condenses into a solid shrunken basophilic mass. Now, coming to karyorrhexis, that is when the pycnotic or partially pycnotic nucleus undergoes fragmentation, that is, it is fragmented into several pieces. And third change is karyolysis, which is the breakdown, the disappearance of nucleus. So it actually is the basophilia of the chromatin that fades due to loss of nuclei, a change that presumably reflects DNA's activity. So in the last stage, the first stage, the nucleus shrinks, then the nucleus breaks down into fragments, and the last stage, the nucleus is entirely dissolved. Now, that is a schematic diagram showing the nuclear changes in necrosis. So, these are the nuclei of normal cells. In this case, this represents the changes in the nuclei which occur in necrosis. So these cells are dead, and here in the first stage, which is pycnosis, the nuclei are condensed and dense. They are shrinking in size. Now the next stage comes karyorrhexis, wherein the nucleus is broken down into multiple fragments, and you can see these multiple pieces of nuclei in the cell cytoplasm. And the last stage, which is karyolysis, is the one in which nuclei are entirely dissolved and the cells just show outline without the presence of nucleus, that is anuclear cells. Again, here you can see the nuclear changes very clearly. These are the pycnotic nuclei. Here, this one, this one, this one. So there are a lot of pycnotic nuclei. Karyorrhexis is seen in some of the nuclei. Yeah, you can see it here. You can see it here. So you can see multiple fragments inside the nuclei. These are the karyorrhectic debris. And lastly, you can also see karyolysis, which is classically seen in these cells, wherein there is there is complete loss of nuclei, that is the nucleus is completely absorbed and you can just see the cell outline. Again, here you can see pycnosis. Here you can see fragmentation, that is karyorrhexis, and here you can see absence of nuclei and just a cellular outline, that is called as karyolysis. Now the types of necrosis. Basically we'll be covering 5 types of necrosis. First one and the most common is coagulative necrosis. Now the coagulative necrosis is the most common type of necrosis and is caused by irreversible focal injury, mostly results from sudden cessation of blood flow. Now grossly, the foci of coagulative necrosis in early stage is pale, firm and slightly swollen. Later on it becomes yellowish, softer and shrunken. So early stages it is firm and pale, later on yellowish and softer. Most common example is heart in myocardial infarct. Now microscopically, the necrosed cells are swollen and appear more eosinophilic than the normal cells. The outline of the cells are retained, so the cell type is still recognized, but the details, that is the cytoplasmic and nuclear details, are lost. So the classic change in coagulative necrosis is intact outline of necrosed cells. Now after a few days, the necrotic foci is infiltrated by inflammatory cells and dead cells are phagocytosed, that is they disappear, and we can just see amorphous necrotic material and debris after a few days. Here you can see first inflammatory cell infiltrate, which is infiltrating the spaces in between the cells. Now coming to the cells, this is the classic appearance wherein you just see the cellular outline. The cytoplasm details are not seen, as well as there are no nuclei, so most of the cells are lacking the presence of nuclei. Again, this one on the left side is a normal heart section wherein you can see these myocardial fibers and they show cytoplasmic details, as well as there is presence of nuclei in all the cells. Now the image on the right is that one of a coagulative necrosis. Here again there is no inflammatory infiltrate, I missed that. In coagulative necrosis, this same section, the same kind of section of heart shows presence of inflammatory infiltrate in between the myocardial fibers. Coming to myocardial fibers, none of them are showing presence of nuclei. So the nucleus is absent in all of them, indicates the stage of karyolysis, and even the cytoplasmic cells are not seen, and there is increased eosinophilia in all the fibers. So that is typical of coagulative necrosis of myocardial fibers. Again, this is a section of recent myocardial infarct. How do you come to know that it is recent? So we know that it is recent because it is, first of all, it is showing irreversible cell injury changes, that is necrotic changes, because there is absence of nuclei and more eosinophilic appearance of all the myocardial fibers, and only the outlines are seen. So we know that there is cell death, and we also see the inflammatory infiltrate, prominent inflammatory infiltrate in between the myocardial fibers. So as the outlines can be recognized and the fibers lack nuclei, we know that there is injury, that is irreversible cell injury, and we know that it is recent. When it gets old, these inflammatory cells basically start engulfing and scavenging the myocardial fibers, and they are phagocytosed, and finally there is no cellular outline and only presence of amorphous material. Here we can see cellular outline, so indicates recent myocardial infarct. So basically we can see the architecture, but the nuclear and cytoplasmic details are lost in coagulative necrosis. Again here, this is a classic example of a slide of renal infarct, wherein you can see the outline and the architecture can be judged from the cell, from the section. So here we can see this must be a glomeruli, and these must be the renal tubules. Now all of these, the lining cells of the renal tubules as well as the cells in the glomeruli are showing increased eosinophilia, homogeneous appearance, absence of nuclei, and presence of ghost outline of cells. So this is classic of coagulative necrosis in a kidney, that is renal infarct. Again, these are the myocardial fibers showing absence of nuclei, homogeneous glassy eosinophilic appearance, and infiltrated by acute inflammatory infiltrate in between the myocardial fibers. However, this is a recent infarct again, as the cell outline is still present. Now coming to an example of coagulative necrosis, that is gangrene. So gangrene is an example of ischemic coagulative necrosis of muscle caused by putrefaction due to action of saprophytic bacteria. Now the types of gangrene are dry gangrene, wet gangrene, gas gangrene. This will be covered in your clinical classes. So now I am showing you one example wherein this is a wet gangrene of the small bowel. Here you can see coagulative necrosis of the affected bowel wall. This is a schematic representation, and this one is the actual section. So that's a coagulative necrosis of the bowel wall, wherein you can see thrombosed vessels here, while the junction with normal intestine is indistinct and just shows an inflammatory infiltrate here. So this is the junction. This is the viable intestine, and this one is the gangrenous intestine, wherein you can see coagulative necrosis, presence of inflammatory infiltrate, absence of nuclei in the cells, and these are the bacterial colonies. Now coming to liquefactive necrosis, it is characteristic of focal bacterial or occasionally fungal infections because microbes stimulate the accumulation of inflammatory cells. So basically liquefactive necrosis occurs secondary to infection most commonly. It occurs due to degradation of tissue by action of hydrolytic enzymes. Now grossly, the affected area is soft with liquefied center, that is very important, containing necrotic debris, and later on a cyst is developed which might be containing pus. Here you can see the cystic area which contains necrotic debris, and macrophages are filled with phagocytosed material. The cyst wall is formed by proliferating capillaries and inflammatory cells. Most commonly it occurs in brain. Liquefaction completely digests the dead cells. The end result is transformation of tissue into a liquid viscous mass. And that is why a cyst is formed, which is lined by a cyst wall and contains liquid viscous mass. And if the process was initiated by acute inflammation, the material is creamy yellow because of the presence of dead white blood cells and is called pus. So in that case, we find a cyst which is filled with pus. Here you can see the central part which consists of a necrotic debris, and the wall area it is covered by inflammatory cell infiltrate and proliferating capillaries. Again here you can see the necrotic debris which forms the central part of the area with liquefactive necrosis and later on converts into a liquid viscous mass. The entire material converts into the liquid viscous mass and converts into a cyst. These are the inflammatory cells forming the cyst wall. Coming to caseous necrosis, the term caseous basically means cheesy white, and it is termed so because of the cheesy white gross appearance of the area of necrosis. So basically the term caseous comes from the gross appearance of the necrosis. It has combined features of both coagulative and liquefactive necrosis, and it is found generally in the center of foci of tuberculous infection. So when you hear caseous necrosis, the one thing which should strike to you is tuberculosis. Now grossly, it resembles, as I said, the term caseous comes from dry cheese, so it resembles dry cheese. It's soft, granular and yellowish. Microscopically, the necrosed foci are structureless, eosinophilic and contain granular debris, and the surrounding tissue shows characteristic granulomatous inflammation which consists of epithelioid cells, giant cells which are Langhans types of giant cells, classic of TB, and mantle of lymphocytes. So here you can see this is the central area, the foci, which is composed of structureless eosinophilic granular debris, that is caseous necrosis. It is surrounded by the necrotic debris, and the foci is surrounded by inflammatory infiltrate which consists of lymphocytes, giant cells and epithelioid cells, which are not clearly visible here. Yeah, here you can see this is the central necrotic foci of caseous necrosis, which is surrounded by inflammatory infiltrate. The inflammatory infiltrate classically is composed of lymphocytes, these epithelioid cells which are derived from histiocytes, and these are the classic Langhans type of giant cells, wherein you can see the nuclei peripherally arranged and the central clear area. Again, this is the central caseous necrosis foci. This is a caseating granuloma, which consists of central core of central caseous necrosis and surrounded by inflammatory infiltrate consisting of lymphocytes, giant cells as well as epithelioid histiocytes. The last one is fat necrosis. Now it is a special form of cell death which occurs at two different locations, but morphologically both the locations have similar lesions. The two locations are pancreas and breast. So it follows acute pancreatitis in pancreas and follows traumatic injury in breast. Now grossly, fat necrosis appears as yellowish white and form deposits. Microscopically, the necrotic fat cells appear as shadows lacking the nucleus, eosinophilic and finely granular cytoplasm, and the intervening pink amorphous necrotic material is seen with inflammatory cells including foreign body giant cells. So here you can see this is the pancreatic parenchyma. Here this is a foci of fat necrosis, wherein you can see shadow-like fat cells lacking nucleus, showing finely granular and slightly eosinophilic cytoplasm, which is usually clear. This is the intervening necrotic material which consists of inflammatory infiltrate. There is also somewhat hemorrhage which is not very clearly seen here, and this one is a vessel with necrotic wall. So even the vessel has undergone necrosis in this case. Again here you can see these empty fat cells lacking nucleus. So these are the ghost shadows of fat cells, and the intervening amorphous necrotic material containing inflammatory infiltrate. So again a case of fat necrosis. Here again you can see empty fat cells without nucleus, intervening granular necrotic material and inflammatory infiltrate. And the last one is fibrinoid necrosis, which is characterized by deposition of fibrin-like material. So it basically results from various causes, commonly involves vessels, and basically is a result of immunological injury. The examples are autoimmune diseases, immune complex vasculitis, and also arterioles in hypertension. That is that is what we call as arteriosclerosis. So here you can see these vessels, and the vessel walls are thickened and contain these pinkish eosinophilic material, which might be the result of some immunological injury or arteriosclerosis. That is the fibrin-like material I was talking about. Again here you can see this higher magnification of a section showing this vessel, wherein you can see the vessel wall contains deposition of fibrin-like material because of fibrinoid necrosis. Thank you.